If you've been playing the past few Madden games, there's a good chance some of your favorite strategies are about to stop working. And these aren't really necessarily bad things, but if you do use these strategies we're about to talk about, you're going to want to start getting in the habit of learning some different things before Madden 27 drops. Because after reading through all of the gameplay changes and playing the game early, they're really trying to get rid of some of the stuff that players have been abusing. Whether it's things like rolling out every play or spamming the same routes over and over, Madden 27 is trying to force players to actually play more football. Now obviously we'll have to play the game for a much longer period of time when it comes out to know how effective these changes will be. But based on what EA has said and based on what I've played, the 5 things I'm about to go over should be significantly weaker in Madden 27. And this first one might be pretty controversial because it exists in college football and half the people love it, the other half hate it. And that is, you will no longer be able to just make easy adjustments on the road because they are bringing in home field advantage. Now we've seen home field advantage in past Madden games and then they took it out, but it was done kind of in a weird way in the past. It seems like now they're bringing in home field advantage in a much similar way to how it's done in college. You've got the stadium pulse in college, and in Madden you'll have a decibel meter. But it appears to be working in the same way. Certain stadiums, of course, are going to be louder than other ones. They even mentioned this in their gameplay deep dive. Stadiums like Seattle, Kansas City, New Orleans, they specifically mention as having louder stadiums, kind of like how it is in college football where you have the top 25 places to play. If you're playing against a team in one of those top 10 stadiums, you'll notice that the stadium pulse is a lot crazier than if you're playing against someone that's maybe ranked 25th or not ranked in the top 25 at all. But no matter where you play, to some degree, you're going to have a little bit more trouble when you're on the road because there is going to be some level of crowd noise, especially when the home team has momentum. So it looks like, much like in college football, for Madden 27, you're not going to be able to make those easy hot routes every single time when you're on the road. You're not going to be able to audible a bunch of times either. And this could get frustrating because sometimes you need to make some changes to a play, maybe even later into the play clock, and your teammates just can't hear you and you're not even sure if your adjustments are going through. Now on the flip side of this, they have added in custom adjustments this year, which does counteract this. So if you want to go into your settings menu and set your custom adjustments, you can set up some custom plays for situations where you might want to put certain routes on a field or have your running back blocking, and those will negate home field advantage because it's more of checking into a whole new play with like a hand signal versus actually barking out orders to multiple different people with all of the crowd noise going. But this is going to be a big adjustment for people to make when they're on the road, especially in those online games. Now if you thought that was a big change, wait till you hear about number 2, because you'll no longer be able to easily just spam the same man-beating routes. And again, depending on who you are, this could be a good thing or this could be a bad thing. For years, we've seen certain routes just absolutely fry man coverage, especially things like halfback angle routes, zig routes from wide receivers, return routes. But this year in both college football and Madden, they made a lot of upgrades to the defense, and now you're going to notice that man defense is maybe as good as it's ever been. They play really tight. There's a lot of hand fighting between the wide receivers and the DBs, so the coverage is overall tighter. Now that doesn't mean that you can't beat man or that some of these routes won't still get open sometimes, but they just simply do not get open at the same frequency that they once did. There was a point in time the last few years where a zig route would win at least 80 to 90% of the time. A halfback angle route would win almost every time if you just had enough time for him to actually complete his route. Return routes would absolutely fry man coverage. Things like crossing routes and short posts would often get open on the break as well. But from playing Madden early and from playing college football for the past month, we've seen that man defense is really good this year, and it's not just because that they made these upgrades to defense and giving the DBs more strategy with leverage and hand fighting, but it's also just simply because some of these routes just aren't as consistent as they used to be, which I guess is kind of more realistic because in real life, it doesn't matter how good a receiver is, he's not going to win every single time he runs a certain route, especially not the average receivers. But with past Madden games, even a lower rated receiver would probably win on a zig route, or a low rated halfback would win on an angle route. Now they're just not going to be consistent every single place. So if you were relying on those routes and spamming them a lot, you're going to have to get into the habit of mixing it up a little bit more this year. Now, number 3 is going to be one of the biggest changes, and I know this one annoys a ton of people. And if you've played Madden games for a while, you have dealt with this time and time again. You've got the perfect defensive play. Everything's covered for the most part, at least to the best of your ability, and then the quarterback starts to roll 20 yards to the right. They run backwards. They run around for a bunch of time, and then somehow somebody magically gets open, or they playmaker somebody open. It's been one of the most frustrating parts of defending in recent football games. And EA is very aware of this, of course, and that's why they added a ton of defensive changes to this year's game to help out with stuff like this. They've added things like plaster logic. They make zone defenders look for work more than they did before. We've got smarter match coverage and more coaching adjustments than ever. So you can set your defense up to help better defend against people that want to roll out and let the play break down over and over. In really simple terms, defenders are not going to just guard grass nearly as much as they used to when the play breaks down. Instead of just sitting in empty zones while the quarterback scrambles around, they're supposed to actively find receivers and attach themselves to threats, especially on the back end. That's what's so good about plaster logic. You could set this in your coaching adjustments and literally tell your defense, as soon as the quarterback breaks the pocket, I want you to attach onto a man, look for work, try to pick up a receiver, so that you're not going to have guys running wide open. Now, sure, will you be able to roll out sometimes and still make plays happen? Of course, that's part of football. But if you're playing someone that wants to go and do this every single play, you're going to have the tools to better help stop this and make it more difficult on them now. And if you thought that stuff was annoying, the next one is just as annoying, and it's quick snapping. And this one might surprise some people because technically quick snapping itself isn't just getting nerfed, but the reason people do quick snap could be getting nerfed. One of the biggest additions to this year's game, which we talked about earlier, was custom adjustments. Instead of making 15 adjustments every single play now, you can save your custom adjustments in your settings. So in the past, the big problem was somebody would come to the line and snap the ball really quickly while you were trying to maybe set up a defense to stop something specific, or you wanted to set up a certain type of coverage or blitz. Well, if you have a favorite coverage, if you have a favorite blitz, or if you're going against meta plays and you recognize that, you can have these custom adjustments now saved in your settings so that when you need to quickly check into one of your exotic coverages, your exotic blitzes, or a specific setup to stop a very popular meta offense, you can do that in just a couple of button clicks now instead of having to make 8 to 10 individual adjustments. So you won't really be susceptible to being quick snap now because you can set up your defense quicker than they can snap the ball. Now, all of those things can be annoying, but this last one is really interesting because this is the first Madden in a long time that's really trying to solve the problem of just relying solely on speed. Now, yes, is speed going to be the most important rating in the game as always? Yes, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. But it's not going to be something you can simply rely on by itself the same way you could for the last 15 plus years. And there's multiple reasons for that. Number one, they've done a lot of work with the wide receiver and DB battles, as I talked about earlier. There's a lot more jostling now. They added a lot of new mechanics here, a lot of new ways for the wide receiver and the DB to interact with each other, especially in man coverage and the leverage options that they continue to tune and all of the coaching adjustments. So now, one of the things that they said leading up to the release of Madden is that you're not just gonna be able to win with speed alone over the top. Will it work sometimes? Yes, of course, because it should. But now because cornerbacks are able to fight more with the receivers, because they have more hand fighting and different techniques and animations, a cornerback that's more sound can stop a fast receiver. I mean, look at Pat Surtain, for example. Yes, I mean, he's not like a super slow cornerback or anything, but he's not like a blazing speed guy. You know, if you lined him up on a Tyreek Hill, you would say, well, Tyreek Hill clearly has a speed advantage, but a guy like Pat Surtain is so good that he doesn't need to be as fast as Tyreek Hill to stop him because he's good with technique, he's good with his hands, he's good with positioning. And now, because they've added this stuff into the game, if you simply just want to spam speed over and over, that's not always going to work because there's different mechanics and animations and logic in the game so that cornerbacks can still win even if they don't have the speed advantage. They still have other tools in their bag, just like real life. And another thing that I'm just interested to see if it plays out this way because it is a thing in college, the deep ball itself doesn't seem as good as in years past. It seems like quarterbacks do not throw on the money deep as much as they used to. They underthrow balls more often. Now, I don't know if that's by design or if that's something that they need to tune, but if it's like that in college, I could see them also carrying that over to Madden. It seems like the deep ball, while it's still there sometimes, it's not consistent play to play, and that could be by design because in real life, you don't see big play after big play after big play in real life. You see teams connect on maybe 2 or 3 of those big plays in a game, but it's not something you're seeing every few plays, so maybe that's by design, and if so, that further plays into the fact that you can't just solely rely on speed anymore because there's a lot of different factors that are also working against that now. Now, I did get some very early gameplay of Madden 27, and if you haven't checked it out yet, make sure to check it out and see some of this stuff firsthand with this video right here on the screen.